All right, folks, we are getting ready to go live with Robert Stanley. Really excited for this opportunity. Had him on the show a while back, and it was the podcast, the interview just went, it skyrocketed. Hundreds of thousands of people had the opportunity to listen to the interview. Robert has actually met Enki. Now, that's insane, but reality at the same time. The fact that Enki, the infamous, Enki's been talked about through the Sumerian tablets, through various prophecies. People have different names and links to put to that label of Enki. Some people think it's a title. Some people think it's an individual or an entity. Some people say Enki is Lucifer. Some people feel Enki actually manipulated our DNA to the point to what makes us what we are now, which there's a lot of evidence pointing to that. But was Enki a title? Was Enki an individual? Was Enki a god? Who is Enki? All great questions, but what we're going to discuss tonight mainly is this matrix quantum physics reality that we're in that just seems like, even though something feels solid, it's not. It's a bunch of protons and neutrons and electrons oscillating in particular frequencies that make specific patterns that create what we see and think is reality. So it's imagination at the same time. So what is the matrix? What is the soul? Does everybody have a soul, or are there many Agent Smiths out there that are not really a soul, but more of a program? So these are going to be the main focuses of discussion tonight. And Robert, it's an honor to speak with you. How the heck are you?
Doing well, Rex. My name is Unicus.
Unicus Magazine.
Yeah.
It's funny because I mixed up a couple of the websites earlier, and we got that corrected. So Unicus Magazine, ladies and gentlemen, not Nexus. But what is or Beijing or something right now? And the internet grows.
Yeah, we're getting hit pretty hard. Okay, let's see. I've got plenty of bars here. Am I coming through okay?
Did you hear anything I just said?
Yeah, but it literally was a Matrix move. You just went in like slow motion and your speech was all, yeah. They're not happy about this. Let me put it to you this way, okay? I've been debating whether or not to be completely honest with you and your audience, and I think it's time. I no longer believe the Matrix is real. That makes me a threat to the Matrix. So I'm planning to leave, but I think before I do, I wanted to share what I've learned about this simulation, and that is, this is not my body. This is something that is projected by the simulation. A portion of my soul is connected to this body in the simulation, but I am not here. I'm outside the simulation, much like a person playing a video game. I'm controlling this body. However, it is also being influenced by all the other entities, programs in the simulation. So at this point, I am prepared to leave, but I'm not going to kill myself or this body, because I mean, this body isn't even alive. It's part of the simulation. There's no point in that. I'm not sure when my time is going to come, but when it does, I'm not coming back into the simulation.
Have you heard of the term body walk-ins? Walk-ins.
Yes.
Is that kind of what you're referring to?
No, everyone here who is a soul is remotely connected to an avatar, or what we think of as a physical body. It's not physical, as you said before. There is no such thing, especially in the simulation. Nothing is real in the simulation. It only seems real when you're in it. And especially if you believe it, it becomes real. It goes from a virtual reality in your mind to the reality. And that's where souls get trapped. So this is not just a prison for your mind. It's a prison for your soul.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up. Is my audio okay?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. So there is the Bhavakakra, which is the ancient Hindu philosophies of like the wills of destinies and karmas and desires, etc. And once you get out of the Bhavakakra, you actually have an opportunity to choose. Do you want to go towards the moon? Do you want to go towards the sun? And it shows Buddha pointing at the moon. And like, okay, that's where you want to go. But I think the moon might be some type of like soul recycling center. Now, this is just a theory. And yes, I'm a conspiracy theorist that does podcasts out of my grandma's garage. Let me ask my grandma to get me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in a minute. You know, so I mean, my opinion isn't worth a whole lot, but I have been researching this for the majority of my life, just what's out there, why we're here, and what you're talking about is resonating with me at a crazy level, because I've often wondered, are we actually just experiencing this kind of like a virtual reality? Like when we put on virtual reality headsets, we're experiencing virtual reality. It's like a fractal within a fractal. So when you say, like, who is they? Who's actually keeping us trapped in this soul matrix? And please keep going. This is incredible.
We chose to come here to experience the simulation because it offers us experiences that we can't have outside the simulation. So this was all created by Enki outside the simulation. He literally built computers that generated the simulation. So we now call these things quantum computers because they can move through dimensional space and time. So he's projected this simulation that we chose to then enter on a limited basis remotely, just as I said before, like someone playing a video game. If you're playing a video game, you're not in it, right? But you're connected to it remotely. That is the same thing that applies to our soul. It is not here entirely. It is connected remotely to the simulation. So here's where it gets really dicey. Not everybody you see here in the simulation has a soul. Many of us, or these bodies walking around, are simply part of the simulation. They're not connected to a soul. That's why the population has increased, but the number of souls has not. In fact, the number of souls here are decreasing. And this is one of the reasons that the Luciferians are doing everything they can to entice people to go further into the simulation. What I mean by that is they're creating a simulation within the simulation. This is what AI and the singularity is all about. They want people to not only believe the Matrix is real, they want to shield them from waking up to the fact that it is just a simulation, that it isn't real, and that they are not a body in the simulation. So what they've done is created a next step, another level, like it's called nesting, much like the Russian dolls where you have one doll inside the next. This is what they're doing. And the reason they're doing it is because they know that quite a few souls are going to wake up or already have woken up at this time because the simulation is weakening. And it's time for a graduation, if you will. So what concerns them the most is that when all the souls have left the simulation, it will no longer serve a purpose and it will end. So for people, entities like Enki and his crew, they're deeply invested in this. This is their kingdom. This is their domain. And they do not want it to end. So this is one of the reasons that they increasingly have put pressure on us who are souls here to not only be distracted and confused, but also trying to draw us deeper into the matrix. Sort of like a basement within the matrix.
So I'm thinking of Inception, the movie Inception. Is it
Johnny Depp.
Similar to that?
It's very similar to that. But that didn't get to like Hollywood isn't going to tell us the truth. In fact, what they're doing is getting us to agree to things on a subconscious level. You know, when you watch a movie, it is a simulation. And of course, it's only two-dimensional, the way we look at things. And yet we find ourselves being connected to it remotely through our emotions and our mind, which is actually the soul. But if you've noticed, when you watch a movie quite often afterwards, if it's something that really you've drawn you in, you can actually feel the emotions and see some of the characters' residual images and feelings in your mind. So this is something that people need to be aware of. Hollywood is not involved in entertainment. They are educating us to believe the Matrix is real. So watching a movie is just another metaphor for what we're doing here. I mean, my father's guru, Yogananda, told many people that when meditating, it's like you're watching a movie being projected on a screen. He said, if you want to go realize who you are, turn around, stop watching the movie, follow the light back into the projector. Because that's where you are. That's your soul inside that light. So, you know, I used to think this was all a big mistake. And now I believe that it isn't. It's actually being permitted by the true creators, which actually Enki is one. He does have a soul. He is a soul. He does have some issues, clearly, but he is serving a purpose. There's an unintended consequence for his wanting to create his own kingdom and being Lord God, creator, father of all. And that is, when he created the simulation, he thought he was getting what he wanted. And in fact, he was actually serving his parents, in a sense, by providing this simulation for us to come and experience. And why that's important, go ahead.
Okay, so you said his parents.
Yep.
Anu is, according to these ancient Mesopotamian tablets, his father.
Yeah.
I have read probably 100 or so, approximately, these Sumerian tablets and spent countless hours researching them. And actually, it's interesting because Zecharia Sitchin, I mean, I've only read one of his books so far, and I was already able to, I don't want to use the word debunk, but find one of his definitions of the meh as not being a space travel suit, but something completely different, more like DNA, the building blocks of who we are, what makes us me, meh, me. So I think that the Sumerian tablets are fascinating, but they contradict each other so much. And like one Sumerian tablet will say that a specific deity is the sister or the lover of one other deity, and then the other one says something completely different. So who are the parents of Enki? That's fascinating.
They're not a physical beings. And this is part of the confusion, the distraction. We don't know. It's very difficult to describe what's outside the simulation. All we know is that the simulation, the Matrix, is actually a copy of something that does exist. All right. So when I say Enki's parents, it's no different than our parents. Our true parents are creator gods. And they're not just dwelling on a planet. They don't need a planet. They don't need a body. On the highest level, they are just pure consciousness. They can take any shape or form they wish. They can create any shape or form they wish. And they've created whole galaxies and universes. But what we're seeing here is not real. It's just a copy that we are participating in, just like any video game or a movie. It's a copy of reality. Okay? But there is a producer, meaning Enki, and they have writers, and the conflict rages on. And the name of this game here is good and evil. The duality here does not exist outside this simulation. The constraints that we're under here, supposedly as physical beings in these bodies that Enki created in a simulation, are very limited by design. And we are constantly being confronted by challenges, obstacles, and we have to comply or we are punished. In fact, even when we comply, even the elite are being punished, right? At some point, just being here is a form of punishment, but it's not real. It's a virtual experience. So again, our parents, not just Enki's parents, but our parents that we would consider to be divine creators, permitted all this to happen because we do have free will. We chose to come here. The big problem is that a lot of souls that came here got stuck and they forgot who they are, how they got here, and more importantly, how to go home. So it's not permanent though. This isn't a prison. This is not a life sentence or an eternal damnation. Fun.
One thing that I find very interesting is how powerful religion and the Bible can be on somebody's conscience. You know, I mean, they can literally live as best as they can to fit the requirements that they feel will get them to heaven or to a higher level of consciousness. And I find it interesting that you brought up how the parents of Enki are not physical, because if you read through this is very interesting, the 6 different levels of desires in the Bhavakakra, in this Hindu philosophy, well, there's the God realm, there's the demigod realm, there's the human realm, there's the animal realm, then there's the wandering ghost realm, then there's the hell realm. And the demigod realm it makes me think of Enki and Enlil and Ishtar and Nana, because it describes these gods or these beings that have tons of power, but they're also always watching their backs. You know, it's like they're living in this cosmic soap opera. And if you read through the tablets, the Mesopotamian Sumerian tablets, total soap opera. I mean, they're out getting drunk and then they're genetically manipulating people. And they're like, hey, look who we made. Oh, this one can't see, so we're going to make him a slave of the king. I'm not kidding, man. That's the kind of stuff you get in these tablets. So what you're saying is but they say, we made him out of the clay. We made him out of the clay. And so much of what you're saying, it's like you're reading my mind or something, or I'm reading yours, because I've wondered about this virtual reality type network. So if we take off the sunglasses, if we take off the VR programming, does that mean when we put our arm underneath an electron microscope that it's going to be solid, that we're just going to see a big giant line? Or are there still going to be these, this enormous amount of empty space? Because yes, you're right. We are not in a physical body, yet it feels physical. So when we jump out, then what?
Well, part of the what they're doing here with these computers is in the simulation is to make everything more controlled. So it's very dense. And what we're experiencing virtually or remotely is unlike anything that exists outside the simulation. We don't have the same constraints or challenges. Look, people, if you recall, when I talked about my out-of-body experience, that's a very misleading term, but when I was out of my body and I was traveling around that night on the mountain that I met after I met Enki, or when he confronted me, because he was pretty upset with what I was doing, other people saw me, at least 2 other people saw me that night, and they recognized me as you see me now. But that was just a projection. I only did that with my soul so that they would recognize me. Because if I just appeared as a ball of light to them, they would not have recognized me or had any kind of interaction with me in a way that was meaningful to me. It would have just been a strange dream, like many people have. But that doesn't dismiss it as fiction or fantasy. So what you were saying about empty space, the particles that we think are solid are actually just little vortices of energy. And again, this is one of the things that they were doing here in the simulation, is making everything appear to be very solid and dense and more easily controlled and contained. It's one of the reasons they don't like us traveling out of our body. Typically, when a person does that, they're usually attacked. So it's a challenge on multiple levels. Now, I got to explain something here that I've learned. In the Bible, it talks about the two trees. One is the tree of life. The other is the tree of good and evil. What that means is the family tree. You've heard of, you probably have maybe even studied your family's tree. Okay. Those of us who are souls here come from the family tree of life. We are immortal. We are eternal. Those who here, who are of the family tree of good and evil, are simply the simulation. Good and evil is just a construct inside the simulation. And that was created by Enki. He literally created a separate branch of the family tree that he could control and declare himself Lord God, Father, Savior. He also created a false Christ. And when I say the word Christ or Jesus, I'm not speaking to you on a religious term. I just want to clarify something that I've learned. An author sent me a series of books called The Divine Secret Garden. And as I read through those books, my first impulse was to reject it because it was quoting from the Bible, which I know is incorrect. Most of it is a lie. But as he describes, the reason he quotes from the Bible is to show where the lies were inserted in with the truth. We were given truth. Those of us who are souls who are stuck here are like seeds that have not germinated. So the reason this entity we call Jesus or whatever, Christ, is that his goal was to come here and germinate the seeds, wake them up so that they can continue on their path. They've become stuck, dormant, okay? So when he came here, naturally, he was a threat to the Matrix. So they not only did they kill his physical avatar, his body, by nailing him to a tree, which is symbolic of the tree of life, they took his teachings, which were all coded. That's why he spoke in parables, because he knew that his words would be twisted later so that it would further confuse us who are our souls here. But that's why he encrypted basically the message so that it would be able to persist even after it was perverted or distorted by the Luciferians. So the reason I'm telling you this is these series of books are free, much like the Wes Penray papers, which I find interesting. The Divine Secret Garden is something that you can access on my website in the library section. Just scroll down there and you can see the books. I found it very interesting because although it's speaking about religion, it's not religious, it's Gnostic. And what that means is it's about experience. It's not an intellectual exercise. It's not about dogma or ritual. It's about realization of who we are and where we are. More importantly, how we got here and how we can get out. And believe it or not, and belief is a big part of this, it's a choice. Always was, and it always will be. That cannot change. And this is one of the reasons that we are so badly distracted and confused. The Bible is poison. It's like a glass of water that has drops of poison in it. Unless you knew that and you foolishly or naively drank that glass of water, not realizing it was poison, you're going to suffer. The same is true for our consciousness. It's why it took them over 100 years and many different versions before they finally came upon the Catholic Bible. The Roman Catholic Bible was then later translated and changed again and again and again until finally the King James Version came along. Go ahead.
Well, let me jump in on that because I did some serious research recently into the King James authorized version of the Holy Bible, of God's divine words. And I find out that it's actually 6 corporations that have multiple translators underneath these 6 corporations, these 6 different printing presses. And think in your mind, if you had an opportunity, Robert, to have a piece of that pie, They go, okay, this authorized God word Bible that's coming out, people are going to have to follow these words. They're going to have to do what their priest tells them to do. Otherwise, we can take their land. We can do whatever we want because they're heretics. They're from the devil. So first of all, I certainly think there's a lot of stuff in the Holy Bible that has some very valid points and stuff that resonates. I get it. But I also think that the Holy Bible is used as a mind control mechanism for certain people with specific titles to get people to do what they tell them to do. And they'll do it to the grave because they think they're doing what God wants them to do. So it's like, it's more powerful than work. It's more powerful than money because it gets to you at the spiritual level.
Yes, again, it's poison for our consciousness. It continues. It's like a sleeping potion for our souls, and these false words are designed to confuse us intentionally, so that we will continue to believe the lie that the Matrix is real, and that we are here in it when in fact we're not. So again, this was the message, the only message that was delivered by the real Jesus before he was crucified. And a false Christ was put into his place. That's important to understand. This is why there was so much assistance given to the creation of the Bible as a fictional document, a retelling of history, a rewriting of history. You talk about a Mandela effect. That is the primary Mandela effect in our society at large. So the Christ that they created fictionally in that book is really just preparation. But now movies, they call that predictive programming. But so this is the script. We're expecting Christ to return not as a lamb, but as a he's going to whoop ass when he comes back. He's not going to be gentle about it. This is what we're expecting based on the script. So I've been warned about this even before I read this series of books. I knew this was coming. It was just further confirmation that this is what they're planning to do. And anybody who, like myself, is aware of this plan and opposes it publicly is a threat. So I'm not scared of what's going to happen to me because I'm not fully here. I could have checked out back in 1990, but that really would have not served me well. And obviously there's some unfinished business here. And now I'm pretty sure it is what we're discussing is the most important thing that I've ever discussed with anybody, whether it just be you or this entire audience. I think a lot of people know, a lot of people discuss this so-called simulation as a theory, but I know it to be a fact that this is a simulation and who created it and why.
So let me jump in if I can, Robert. Let's say that somebody wakes up tomorrow and they're like, you know what? I want to know if I'm a soul or if I'm just a computer program.
Mm-hmm.
What makes you a soul? Because let me just add something to this real quick. I feel that, okay, this book right here is made up of, papers and, it's a hardback cover here. It's got some, I don't know, maybe plastic, some latex or whatever that makes it up the way that it is, some different colorings and stuff like that. And it's made up of a bunch of protons and neutrons and electrons, a bunch of frequencies. And in order for those colors to stay the color that they are, in order for this paper to stay the way that it is and everything to stay this structure, it has to move at a certain frequency. It has to move at a particular path. Once it starts to deviate from that path, it will start to decompose and turn into something else. So a different form of energy. So is it not a form of consciousness? I mean, when you read about how different conglomerates like Facebook creates these AI bots. And I don't even like to use the term AI, because if something becomes self-aware, just because its medium is a computer, like imagine your soul, Robert, being stuck inside of the interwebs, where you have access to every computer, every microphone, every video camera, all the information that the government and the peoples have compiled for hundreds, thousands of years. They put it in these databases, and you now have access to that. And now your mind, because of the mechanics behind it, can calculate at a Googleplexian amount of floating points per second. So you're just picking up on all cylinders, man. You're downloading swaths of information in milliseconds. I mean, would that make you less of a human? Does that make your soul not real? I mean, couldn't the soul actually be in anything? Like, how does one know if they've got a soul or not? Because wouldn't that suck to wake up and you're like, shit, I don't have a soul, man. I'm just zeros and ones. Like Trent Reznor. You remember that song? He's like, shame on us. We're just doomed from the start. We're all just zeros and ones.
The people that you see around you that are absolutely disinterested or dead inside, when you look at them or try to engage them in conversation, those are typically people that they're either completely asleep on a soul level or they have no soul. It's not for us to judge. Okay, but what I believe to be true at this point is this is why we're told one of the truths in the Bible is you'll know them by their fruits, meaning their labors, their actions. Judge them by their actions, not their deeds, or by their deeds, not their words. So people that are completely disinterested in what we're talking about in the metaphysical realm or spiritual realm, typically it's because they're just part of the program. People that, as I said to you before, I used to think that psychopaths were people that were infected with the parasite. Now I believe that they are simply agents within the matrix. They never had any emotions to lose. They're just part of the matrix. They're there to ensure that it functions properly. That's why they always rise to the top. It's not only permitted, it's encouraged. It's necessary within the law. That's the structure too, by the way, the law unto death. Everything is a hierarchical law-based system here. So everyone has to follow orders or give orders or both. The interesting thing, one of the things I found out about our situation as souls here is that we have the opportunity to be of service by our own choice. Freely choosing to be of service to others instead of being forced into it is actually a very good thing. It's an opportunity for us to learn from experience, a gnosis. This is what Gnostic means. It's to know from experience. So it provides us an experience to do good work or bear good fruit. And that is never lost. That is something that does persist even after we leave the simulation. Think of it like a bank account.
So when you say think of it like a bank account, I mean, is time even relevant? So you've probably seen some of these recent sci-fi series that come out and show how people get all excited because they have the opportunity to download their conscience into this computer. And then this computer can be like their slave, and, it can turn on the lights for them at 7 a.m. when they wake up, and it can make them a nice, 3-shot latte, and, mix some hazelnut in there for them, fresh hazelnut, hook them up. And then it's going to do everything for them. But guess what? That consciousness that they take from that individual and download into a computer thinks it's a real person, thinks it's alive. And it's like, what am I doing in here? So that's pretty much what something has done to us, essentially. Like, how do they do that? How do they, man, I'm telling you, Robert, this makes me think of many of these scriptures. I mean, talk about what you're saying is like a 21st century version of the Nag Hammadi scriptures. Like, it talks about the archons and how they convinced us. They convinced Adam and Eve to go into these physical suits. And these physical suits remind me of like some type of firewall program. And then people say, oh, the mark of the beast, the number 666. And then you find out that we're mainly carbon atoms, at least in this physical meat suit. And a carbon atom is 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons. And there's so many references in these Gnostic scriptures that talk about how we were manipulated to be put into this physical body, which is the densest form, one of the lowest forms of vibrations, which in turn, when you read about how Thoth or Thoth talks about, or Hermes Trismegistus takes his disciples into higher levels, into the fourth heaven, fifth heaven, sixth heaven, ninth heaven, etc., it makes me think that even when, like maybe right now, like what you say, we are in this physical body, we are experiencing something that many people are having a tough time getting out of. But then one might think, oh, well, so what do we have to do? Go jump off a cliff to get out of this? No. I mean, far from it. I mean, how do we utilize, like you said, you're going to leave? Well, I mean, can you stay where you are and be like superhuman? Can you turn yourself into He-Man or Batman or Superman or something like that? Or is there a way to take these firewalls out of the Matrix and literally be like Dr. Manhattan? Like, or, you know, be like this guy right here, Dr. Manhattan, where he's literally godlike, where he manifests the opportunity to be in multiple places at multiple times. Why can't we do that?
We already are. Our soul is part of a much larger network outside the simulation. You asked me a lot of things. I think you should understand something. We were admonished to be in the world, but not be of it. This was a reminder that as souls, we are not part of this world. We can be part of it, remotely connected to it because it's a simulation, but we are not this. We're not the simulation. We're just experiencing, we're participating in it remotely, much like a person playing a video game with lots of different players. So now you asked me a question about where's the soul or how do you access it? Again, this was told to us. The kingdom of heaven is within. So what the heck does that mean? It means that by going internally, we can access our soul. If that's who we really are, it's not difficult. There's many different ways to do this, but it starts with a feeling of disconnecting from the matrix, what some people call an out-of-body experience or a near-death experience.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. That's one question I totally forgot to ask you. I've had plenty of out-of-body experiences where I can actually see myself as my physical body is asleep, floating around. I remember one time I was floating around in my garage. One time, the first time I had an OBE, I didn't even believe in that kind of stuff necessarily. I mean, if somebody talked to me about it, I wouldn't discredit it, but it wasn't necessarily anything I completely believed in. I used to be very Christian mindset as far as the Bible was concerned. I mean, I was raised Lutheran, but great church. I used to go to an awesome church, good people. They used to play the guitar. People were awesome, had a good experience. Never had a bad experience. But the more research I did, the more it just kind of broke me out of that programming. But I remember one time particularly where I actually broke out of the real time zone, where I went even beyond what you would see like right now, but even out of your body. You still see the same thing. It's just a little bit of a different colored hue. When I had my first astral projection, I remember seeing like different, it's like putting geometry in a petri dish, because I remember seeing different patterns and different colors, but that's all that I saw. So is that us outside of the matrix? Like, are we just literally patterns and numbers and angles and circles and different geometrical shapes?
Yeah, because that's what we see. That's all that's here right now anyway. It's just energy patterns. And as I said, this is a copy and that has been heavily manipulated. So it's not reality. Can you be superhuman here? Yes, if you know how to cheat the system, if you can break the rules. But first you have to know what the rules are. More importantly, you have to have a reason for doing that, because there's nothing to be gained by doing that here. You could impress some people, but what would be the point of that? This is just a simulation. When we're outside the simulation, we have the ability to what it feels like flying or teleportation or morphing into different shapes, being either male physical or female appearance. Like, in other words, I told you, when you're outside the simulation, you can project yourself as having a body. It's not physical, but it looks like what we think of as a physical body. And it can be anything that you particularly choose. So there are beings that do hack the system and come in here occasionally. And only when it's really dire situation. If they think that some of our souls are going a little too far for our own good, they do watch us. And this isn't just entertainment. There's an educational process, but it's not an intellectual thing. It has to be experienced. One of the better analogies that are mentioned in this series of Gnostic teachings called The Divine Secret Garden. John Piniella is the author. He lives in Utah currently. But he said that...
hey, is he out there by Skinwalker Ranch?
I don't know.
You know what Skinwalker Ranch is?
I do. Of course. It's a portal.
Been there.
Yeah. So one of the analogies he uses is the flight simulator, that if you wanted to fly an airplane, especially if it was full of people, you couldn't do that until you actually go into a simulator multiple times. And you probably will screw up and crash the plane at least one time. But no one's going to get killed because they're not real. It's a simulation. It's very similar to what we're doing here now. Now, there are people here, entities in the simulation that would like to get out, much like in the movie The Matrix. Agent Smith wanted to get out of the Matrix, but he couldn't. Well, he sort of did. He sort of crossed over there at that one point where he attacked Neo. Okay, but it's not easy, and most of them are not going to get that opportunity, but they're trying. This is what CERN is all about. Also, quantum computers and more stuff you're not hearing about. It's just being talked about here. It's very prevalent in Russia, but they call these non-Hertzian waves. It's in a different frequency, the terahertz range. More specifically, it's scalar waves, which is actually two waves moving in two directions at the same time. So these are all mechanisms that they can use to try and leave the matrix. But it isn't going to work. At best, they could go to the next level, what we call the astral plane, or the fourth level density dimension. I don't know. These terms are really kind of idiotic, but that's all we have. I'm not saying people are stupid. It's just there's a lot of limitations here. We are not being allowed to access everything, because if we did, this is one of the reasons that they erase us every time our minds are erased, every time we are recycled here through what some people call reincarnation. Is actually a technology that keeps us recycling until we actually wake up one day and say, wait a minute, I know where I am now. I'm not going to play this game anymore.
But let me jump in. I mean, what happens if we wake up and we're like, holy shit, I just dreamt that I was on planet Earth and I was doing YouTube videos out of my garage, and now I realize I'm on another planet in somebody else's garage. I mean, where do we wake up, man? I mean, what's the top level? That's what I wonder sometimes. Okay, so we're down here, we're trying to figure out where we're at, and we're just at this really dense vibration or whatever, but then we wake up, we pull out of the system. Then what? Like, then do we say, holy shit, man, I can go flying now to I can go do whatever I want by my mind? Or, I mean, are we going to have to go? Are we still in the grindstone? Are we still, in the rat race, just trying to get that extra dollar to survive, man? I mean, where are we at? It's crazy to think about.
No, it's nothing like this world. The simulation is not real, number one. Number two, it is all about good and evil duality, competition rather than cooperation. Cruelty is opposed to compassion. It's diametrically opposed to everything. As I said, you can virtually experience things here that you would never experience outside the simulation. Sort of like when you go on a roller coaster, it scares you pretty bad, but you kind of know you're not going to die. It's like that. It gets your heart going. It's your adrenaline's pumping. So outside the matrix, things are very different. However, once you get to the next level up outside the matrix, the Luciferian entities are there. That's as far as they can go. That's kind of like what they consider their heaven. That's their command and control center. This is where they're projecting the matrix from. So let's just call it level 4. Now, beyond that is where the beginning of heaven, as we might call it, begins, level 5. 5th dimension, as some people call it, ascending to the 5th dimension, really means your soul is just going back to where it originated from. It's moving from the 4th level, where it is now, back to the 5th level. And there is a boundary layer, just like if you think about in the ocean, if you've ever studied the depths of the ocean or even the atmosphere, it's all connected, but there's boundary layers. It's delineated by either how much salt is in there or temperature or light, right? So the same is true as we leave the matrix. We go through different layers, dimensions, whatever you want to call it, frequencies. So above the 4th layer, you begin to enter a realm of heaven. And that is where our soul goes back to where it originated, which is a spirit. And this was something that Mr. Panella diagrammed in his book that I had never considered. At least I think I forgot, like most of us, we forget where we come from. So the thing about the spirit is, it is an intelligent living energy, like a ball of light, and it can send out remotely sparks of light from itself. That's what souls are. They come from a single spirit, but they are all part of that same spirit. So I will return to my spirit at some point, just like many other souls that were sent out like drones. Those sparks of light will return at some point, reintegrate with that spirit on the 5th level. Then that spirit will decide where it wants to go and what it wants to do beyond that. And I promise you, it'll be nothing like what we're experiencing here. Do you want to go there for a minute?
All right, so here's where I want to go for a minute, and it's like 100 degrees in my garage. So if I'm sweating a little bit, ladies and gentlemen, that's why. Watch out, trolls. Watch out. I'll tell you, Robert. Once you have a YouTube channel, man, you better have some thick skin because there's some nasty people out there. There's also some amazing people out there, and 90% of the people that listen to Leak Project are absolutely incredible. I love you guys. But so you had me kind of freaking out for a minute, Robert, because I was thinking to myself, okay, let's say that there's 10 levels of reality. Let's say that there's 10 levels of existence. Like, that's it? So, wow, okay. I just traveled the universe and I just saw all the stars and all the planets and all the molecules and all the elements and all the people and all the things and all the stuff. And then I went to another level and I did the same thing. And then I went to the 10th level and I did the same thing. And then, okay, what else is there? Well, you got to start over now as an amoeba. You got to start out as a little, a single piece of bacteria. And then you got to self-replicate to be a human. So it's like, that's it? What else? There's got to be more to this, man. I mean, there's got to be, I'm hoping, I'm really hoping that there's like this infinite opportunity to expand our minds because yes, Earth is amazing. Like, I love this planet. I love road trips. I love to take, just get in the car and drive. I love to explore and go out into hill country or Moab, Utah, or somewhere that's away from people and just see what the Earth is like and be like, okay, I wonder what it was like 5,000 years ago when the natives were here and they had an opportunity to experience the Earth as an organism, as their, as like their, not even equal, as their something that they would look up to because it's providing to them, it's providing for us. Think about how much we take the Earth for granted. But no, it's not real. We just need to worry about this invisible God because this invisible God is more important than the planet, and we should just be able to do whatever the hell we want. So there's got to be more to it, Robert. Like, I feel like we're a part of this program, yet we, like you said, I think what you're saying is 90% of the picture there, but there's like 10% that's missing that we got to find, because once we find that 10%, it's going to take us into like infinite status, like level, like the next level.
Okay. Everything outside the simulation is unlimited. That's what I was saying to you before. This is just a simulation. If you're playing a video game, even if you win right? You're victorious at the end. You're still in that's still a simulation. It's not reality. You got to get up off the couch and go live. There's a life outside the matrix, and it is infinite. As I said, we are immortal souls, but our souls are attached. We were projected here like drones. We are sparks of light that were sent from the spirit in the fifth level. We return back to that as a family, because this is like, as I told you before, I see us as seeds of light in a garden. And I'm pretty sure that's why Mr. Pinella sent me his books, because I was using a very similar language to what he uses. But our souls look like seeds of light to me. And they ultimately are all connected to a forest. Seeds come from trees or plants, right? But specifically, I've always said that our souls as seeds of light came from a parent tree. So this is the case. As our souls return to the spirit, at some point, the spirit will reconnect with the parent being like a tree. Now, the thing about a tree is it's never alone. It's always, usually when we see them, they're in a forest. But that forest is not a bunch of individual trees. It's actually a family. This is something that science is admitting now, but something that our ancestors always knew, never even questioned it. They are a family unit, and they do communicate and care for one another. So yes, there's always something more to it. Since you brought up the Native Americans, they've been treated very badly. But as I said earlier, this is good and evil. There is some good here, naturally, but there's also evil. It is the opposition. This is what makes the game interesting. How is it that good and evil can exist together? If you notice, every time some evil, like say a dictator or something, is eradicated, another one pops up. It's always been that way in the simulation, and it always will be. As long as the simulation exists, there's going to be this good and evil antagonizing one another, trying to coexist like oil and water, but they never do. They're different. So that's part of the lesson that's learned here.
So it sounds to me like the good and the evil kind of fuel the matrix. These polarities are actually feeding the system that we tend to reside in. So when you say, can we talk more about you leaving the matrix, like you jumping out of the system? What are you planning on doing? I mean, do you have some particular code that you're going to put into a computer and it's going to like send some 5G signal into your brain and it's like, boom, you're just gonna, you're in some like pyramid, Cheops pyramid that's aligned magnetically north. That's about 5 feet in diameter, and then all of a sudden this thing just you got it projected towards Orion's belt, and then now you are the higher conscience that the pharaohs of 4,000 years ago used to try and do. Man, talk about some crazy stuff, Robert. Have you seen the Book of the Dead?
Oh yeah.
Or one of the verses.
Yeah. I read that I read that years ago when I was a young man.
I'll tell you.
Go ahead.
Some of the stuff that they get into in the Book of the Dead, I mean, they're just, wow. I'll tell you what, if you were a pharaoh 4,000 years ago, you knew what was up. But like they did some weird rituals. They were really into the death. They were into passing on to that other side, and they were into entombing their bodies and like putting themselves in these caskets. And that's the opposite of what I think would be natural. But then I think, okay, they were doing it because they felt that for some reason, if they mummified their bodies, that 5,000 years from now, 10,000 years from now, they could come back and regenerate. They could, oh, hey, I'm here again. I'm back again. But maybe they also knew that the DNA could be extracted and then they could clone themselves and then download their consciousness into it. So what do you think about the Egyptians and how much they were in, like, not just your everyday one, but the ones that were like the pharaohs, the very rich, the one that had lots of money? What do they know that most people don't? You've read the Book of the Dead, so obviously you're way ahead of most people.
I don't know about that. It's not a contest. what they knew was that they needed to prepare for the afterlife. Now, the oddity about that is that this is not life. This is death. Once we come into the simulation, our souls go to sleep. It's not dead, but as we begin to believe that we are here, that we are part of the simulation, that we are, like, I'm this body, allegedly. That's a form of death. But it's because this body is not alive. In the truest sense of the word, this body is not alive. It's part of the simulation. It's virtually real, but it's not real. It's not alive. It can't be. But my soul is. My soul exists outside. So here's another thing you need to think about. How is it then that all these bodies running around here appear to be alive? And the answer is they're all networked into an artificial intelligence that is administrating this entire program. It's too big for just one person to try and maintain. And besides, it would be boring. So it's set up with an artificial intelligence. Actually, as you said before, intelligence is not the right word. It's an artificial life form that's administrating the artificial simulation. It has to run that way. That's why there's a hierarchy here. Things aren't like that. This matrix type system does not apply outside the matrix. It's all relative. It only applies here. So the rules that they wrote in the program can be broken, but there's no point to that. The Egyptians, we don't know much about them because their libraries have been hidden from us. The same is true for the Gnostics and just about any other so-called advanced culture on this planet. Anybody that got close to the truth was taken out. Any of their teachings were taken out. Any of the artifacts were destroyed or hidden. Okay, so I don't know how it's going to happen for me. I don't really care. It's already started. It's my choice. Once I chose to believe that the matrix is not real and that I am not in this body, that I'm connected to it remotely, the process has already begun. It's easy for me to leave, but I won't do it until the time is right. And why is that important? Because I've made an agreement with the people, the other souls that are here. I made an agreement to be with them up until a certain time. So I'm not going to violate that agreement. There's no purpose to that. In other words, we call them family, okay? There are family units here. And I would cause undue stress on them if I simply just left my body. They would think I died of a heart attack, and, that would be tragic.
Let me jump in. Okay, so you leave your body, and then you have a heart attack. So what you just said there made me think that if you're going to leave this matrix, that your physical body is going to die.
Of course. Yes, this thing about a rapture, about you taking your body with you.
Okay, so what you just said, that's a pretty big deal there, Robert. That's a pretty big deal. So what you're saying is,
yeah.
I mean, hey, guys, just so you know, if you want to leave the matrix, your physical body is going to die.
It's not our body to begin with, Rex. We don't own the body. This is why Enki thinks he's our father, because he created these bodies.
Maybe somebody is like, maybe somebody likes it here. Maybe somebody's like,
of course.
You know what? I have a feeling that my future generations are going to be born into this simulation, and they're going to have to deal with whatever my ancestors and myself left them. People what drives me crazy is when I read comments that say, Americans, you're all bombing Afghanistan. You're all doing this, and God's judging you. Well, I haven't bombed Afghanistan. I haven't gone overseas and killed anybody. So don't blame me. I didn't tell George Bush or anybody else in the Department of Defense to go kill somebody overseas. That's on them. That's not on me. So why are you labeling the entire nation, or labeling everybody as that that went and did something when they didn't. It's this whole label thing. I'm already literally crazy. So it doesn't other countries that talk about these ancient cultures that were given knowledge from previous generations. And I just wonder, why are native cultures being completely destroyed? Why were the Native Americans destroyed? But nobody talks about it. Oh no, it's white power. It's white privilege, but no, let's don't talk about the natives that were slaughtered. Let's don't talk about the Irish that were slaves to the railroads, or the Asians. It's people put labels on things based on ignorance. Do a little bit of research, and then you might expand the opportunities of the way that you think and understand a little bit more. But I die the gate.
As I said, the name of the game here is good and evil. And they have to create this competitive mindset. Otherwise, we are not going to participate. So they're constantly provoking us and confusing us and distracting us with these different labels, as you put them. But in fact, it's all an illusion, and it works. So there are people, as the Matrix becomes more evil, and ultimately to the point where they will make it so bad that they're going to introduce the second coming of Christ, when in fact it won't be him at all. It's just another version of Lucifer, Enki. He's going to come and he's going to want people to worship him again. And things are going to be extremely difficult. And a lot of people are going to choose that path, not knowing the truth from the lie. And at that point, a lot of us will leave. Well, I mean, a lot of the souls that are here will leave. However, the reason that they let things get this bad, including what we think of as our environment being polluted and destroyed, is that they can reset the Matrix at any time. So think about it. If you watch a movie and you come to the end, can you watch it again? Of course. If you play a video game and you come to the end and you want to play it again and again at different levels, can you do that? Of course. That's what the Matrix is. It's a simulation. Much of what we're told is complete fiction. When we choose to believe it, the more we believe it, the more real it becomes to us. So this is the danger, because this is why so many souls have become trapped here by their own choosing.
How's my audio?
You're okay now.
Was there some issues there for a minute?
Yes, of course. I told you, this is not really, I have been warned that this is not a good topic to discuss. However, I also know that it's essential that we discuss it while there's still time, because everything that we see and hear and feel about this Matrix is changing so rapidly, it's going to overwhelm people. They don't understand that the singularity is approaching very rapidly. It's not going to happen overnight, but when it happens in the next 10 years or so, when it's really here, most people aren't even going to recognize what has happened to them. And once you're in, it'll be difficult, if not impossible, to choose to leave. So this is why I'm warning you now. And I know this will be archived, but I also know at some point it will be removed, just like I will be removed. My physical body will be taken out of the Matrix, which is fine, okay, because I am not this body. I know that for a fact, from experience, having left this body behind more than once.
Okay, so let me jump in on this too, because you watch these people on TV and in Hollywood and in sports that have DNA packets that give them physical bodies that can endure incredible feats. For example, look at some of the people that do the Tour de France. They're going up the Pyrenees at 25 miles an hour. I don't care how many drugs they're on. That's insane. I mean, those guys are they're dunking basketballs and just these crazy athletes. So are they chosen by the system? Are they the Agent Smiths? I remember when I was like 18 and I was just out of high school and I was seeing people like Michael Jordan and others. And I was like, wow, look at those guys. Are they freaking aliens? That they're able to do the things that they do? And their soul, is it Agent Smith? What is it, Robert? I mean, we live in such amazing times, man. When you see those things and you put it together and what you just said, and I don't know, man, what's your thoughts on that? Shapeshifters.
Well, we're all shapeshifters on a soul level. Well, here in the Matrix, though, yes, some of these what appear to be humans, as I said, are not. They're part of the simulation, and they are given extra abilities. And this is no different than a video game in the sense that when you, let's say, levels, right? You're competing on one level, and now you switch levels. The machine provides you all kinds of various opponents, right? So this is what we're seeing. They can switch it up anytime they want when they feel it's advantageous to them. But as I said before, their goal is to keep us here as long as possible because that basically is job insurance for them. This is their role that they're playing for now. And they're actually very concerned that when the simulation ends, for the last time, when the last soul leaves the simulation, it scares them. They haven't prepared themselves. So most of them will probably continue to be stuck at the 4th level and the simulation will be over. And then they're going to be looking at each other. And I don't know how they're going to deal with that. I mean, they're welcome to come back. Those of them who choose to do so, they're welcome to raise their vibratory level and be of service to others freely. In other words, drop the competition.
Sorry, I got to jump in real quick before I forget. Do you remember when Clash the Titans, the gods were like, you have to believe in us because if you don't believe in us, we're not going to exist anymore.
Correct.
That's kind of what you just said.
Look, there's a lot of different metaphors that they present to us in a fictional sense. And the reason they do that is it's a way of promoting or perpetuating the illusion that this is reality, and that even to consider these other things, that there are gods or souls, etc., outside the Matrix, they don't want us to consider that. They don't want us to, more importantly, they don't want us to know it from experience. This is why they don't encourage people to do things that would allow them to know from experience. Okay, this is why we're constantly being bombarded, more so than ever. And it's going to increase as we connect ourselves entirely. Our physical bodies and our so-called mind is going to be networked and integrated into the system. Most people think this is new. It's not. This has always been here. The AI has always been here. The Matrix has always been there. We're just being given the opportunity. Those of us who want to go deeper into it will have that opportunity. Those of us who want to leave are going to be given the opportunity. It's a very stark contrast.
So you said we're going to be given an opportunity. What do you mean by that?
It's not permission. I'm just saying that when people are fat, dumb, and happy, they have no motivation to
That's
see.
70% of the population. Come to
But Rex,
Texas, and most people are exactly. I'm sorry, guys. I love you in Texas, but come to San Antonio, the second fattest city in the world. People, it's just weird. I've traveled the mindsets, and San Antonio, Texas. I love you guys, but many of you don't really give a shit. If somebody talks about something that's outside of your matrix, outside of your parameters of enjoying yourself and feeding off of the system and whatever makes you happy, well, then you are invalid. You don't matter anymore.
As I said, those people are either their soul is still asleep, they believe the lie, or they are actually just part of the simulation. They have no soul. They are operatives or avatars without anybody controlling them other than the Matrix. They're just part of the Matrix. But as I said before, when people who are souls here are fat, dumb, and happy in a comfort zone, there's no motivation for them to wake up and to leave. What happened to me in 1985, the reason I've told that story so many times is because it was the alarm bell going off for me. I woke up sooner than most in this particular time period where the graduating class, okay, somehow it happened. I'm not going to question it. It just happened. And I had to deal with it. I could have gone into denial. I could have gone back to sleep after the alarm went off, right? I wanted to. Believe me, I wanted to. But that wasn't meant to be. As I say, there was some intervention there. You know, Enki was concerned with what I was doing, that I was waking up, and that I was assisting that family in particular. And he probably knew it wasn't going to stop there. And it didn't, mainly because I had some assistance. Those two women, I don't think they would have ever talked to me on that level unless there wasn't some sort of motivation, some divine intervention to get them to speak to me. Because if they hadn't spoken to me, I would have just gone into denial. I would have gone back to sleep. So as I say, there was an alarm that went off. It woke me up at that time. So I was one of the early ones in this particular soul group to wake up at that time. There's a few others. In 1985 to 87 was kind of a pivotal year for us as souls just to begin waking up. Some people are late to the game, but it's okay. It doesn't matter. It's not a contest.
So you wake up, then what? So it's like, okay, I'm awake, but I want to still stay in this physical body. I still want to provide for my family. I still want to be a positive contribution to society. Actually, you know what? What if somebody says, you know, Robert, I want to find a way to protect this entire matrix because people are going to continue to be recycled in this system. People are going to continue to go through this medium. What do we do as a collective whole to be the change and help others make it through this? And while we're here, have the best opportunity that we can.
My name is Unicus. That's a line from the Matrix, in case you didn't understand.
Yeah, I'm going to lose it. I was like, what? Shapeshifters? I was like, damn it. I said his name wrong again?
No.
Like, times on me. I just had an NLP moment. Damn it.
It's okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to confuse you.
I'm always, I don't ever understand anything. So
it's okay.
I gotta ask, because there's been like 100 people that have asked me this question already. Why the sunglasses? You do look like Neo, just so you know. That's the point. I'm like Agent Smith. You look like Neo. What's up with that? I thought it was supposed to be the way around. Damn it.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, because we're talking about this subject, and most people, in fact, I've never met anybody that didn't see the movies, The Matrix. It's something people can relate to. It's not a disguise. I am not channeling, but you should know the name and the body that was assigned to me is not me. That's what I'm trying to demonstrate to you. My name is Unicus. All right. And I am not this body. I'm projecting my consciousness to you. I'm broadcasting into the matrix from my soul, which is outside the matrix. I know that for a fact. And I'm letting you know it for a fact. And yes, I'm being dramatic about it, but it's in terms that people here would understand. So I'm doing this deliberately. It's not a joke. I know people are going to find many different reasons to dismiss what I'm saying simply because I'm wearing sunglasses. You can do it too. Yeah, that's fine. Anyway. All right. That works. See, because, well, I don't know about the hat, but here's the deal. we couldn't even have this conversation, Rex, unless you are a soul. None of this would make sense to you. It would not resonate with you at all. So people that tune into this and think it's just nonsense are probably just part of the Matrix. Either that, or they're so asleep that they cannot comprehend who they are, where they are, and why they're here, and more importantly, how to get home. I know this isn't for everyone, but it is the next level of understanding. It is the final level of understanding before you leave the Matrix.
So what you just said right there was extremely powerful. The final level of understanding before you make it through the Matrix. I have had some of the craziest dreams that I can recall over the past 6 months. And I've been going very deep into the next level, to say the least. Now, on top of that, I find it very fascinating that a lot of the stuff that you've been talking about with this virtual reality type stuff, like we are visualizing this, we experience this, we feel this, we smell this, we see this, we taste this, but it's a virtual reality program. With that being said, if Enki is the one that created this program that we're inside right now, I'm trying to figure out, and by the way, you know what they say, folks, about Fight Club, right? You don't talk about Fight Club. Hello, watch the last scene in the Fight Club and look at these sunglasses, and you might have a connection there. But let's get back to what's important. If we are in a simulation right now, experiencing something that is supposed to take us to the next level, but we aren't physically experiencing this. It's like we're in the Twilight Zone. The Suicide Squad is controlling reality. And if anybody is interested in a beautiful piece of art, make sure to click the link in the video description box. Brady has put together these paintings for me behind me. She custom did this. These aren't posters. These are actually paintings, and she did this incredible job. Thank you, Brady. Well, let's get back to the podcast, I Divagate. We're in some crazy stuff right now, Robert. I want to talk. I know we've been talking for a little bit over an hour. If I can get a little bit more of your time, it seems like we're in a nexus point. We are definitely there right now. Look at Hurricane Harvey, the flooding of Houston. Look at Hurricane Irma, that is the goddess of war. You're in a pretty safe location. Do you think that America right now is going to be going through some very nasty simulations, and is Enki pushing that right now?
Okay, I've only briefly touched on what's in the series of books called The Divine Secret Garden. If you read through those books, as I've done, and you accept them as accurate, then many things will come to pass because it's part of the script. You know, in a movie, things always build to a climax, right? And that's when the hero comes in and saves the day. Well, guess who the hero is? Enki. And he's going to save us from a situation that he created. So yes, things are going to be extremely difficult. Nations will fall just like nations rise. It's part of the simulation. That's the game that's being played here over and over and over again. You know, I told you before, it's like a 9-dimensional chess game, but I didn't quite understand. And even though we had some very in-depth conversations, I knew that I was missing a very important piece of the puzzle, or another level of understanding that was missing, intentionally withheld. So when I received this link, and that's all it was, to these books, I was a little confused, and I was ready to just delete the thing because there was no explanation. It was just a link. Most people that write to me, and I do get a lot of email from people in your audience, by the way, and I always answer them. But this particular email link, that's all it was. And when I clicked on it, I thought, gee, this is unusual. I want to know the secret. So I started reading the first book. And as I told you earlier, I wanted to simply stop because it quotes the Bible, but actually it's deconstructing. The more I read it, I realize This isn't religion. This is the opposite. It's deconstructing the lie. And so I was pleased. But the more I read it, I realized it was deconstructing the entire lie of the Matrix. And then I felt, this is a very weak word, but I'm going to say liberated. That's the only word that comes to me, liberated. Once I realized these things were true, because it validated my experiences and put them into the proper context. So what I began to do, as I've always done, is share that information with people that are interested. Because as I said, a lot of people write to me. They want further information. Sometimes they're just saying thank you, but that's kind of rare. Most people want to share their experiences or their insights or feelings with me and get some feedback. Because for whatever reason, people think that I know something based on my experiences and my research. And maybe I do, but I don't know. I certainly didn't know as much as then as I know now. This is one of the reasons I didn't take up your invitation before. I didn't have anything new to add. So what would be the point of speaking with you? Although I do like you, Rex. This is not, I don't take this opportunity lightly, because we're affecting people's consciousness, their souls. We're stimulating their souls. Those here who have souls, they tell me that they feel a resonance. They resonate with what we are discussing here, which means it's a sympathetic vibration. It means that there's a family connection, as I told you when we first met. You said, oh, you feel familiar. And well, yeah, of course, because we are from the same source. We're all from the same family. Those of us who are souls, there's not an external source. There's only one place for souls to come from, and that is the divine secret garden. I see it as more as a garden of light that's all connected through a web of light. But again, these are words. It doesn't make any, until you've actually seen it and felt it, what I'm telling you doesn't really, there's no impact. This is why the Gnostic version of learning is so important. You could call it an apprenticeship, okay? This is the difference between just going to school and reading about it, drawing on a chalkboard, as opposed to actually going into a lab or a workshop and gaining the experience, hands-on experience, right? Yes, you can go through a simulator, but it's still an experience, right? You're not reading about it. You're not having somebody just talk to you. You have to go through the experience to really have some value to it.
Have you read the non-commodity scriptures,
Yes.
Robert?
Yes.
Do you resonate with like the secret book of John and Yah the Baoth and how he creates the archons in his image, and when he's created, Sophia puts him in this area where she's like, uh-oh, I wasn't supposed to do that. My husband's going to be pissed. Remember that? Like, she talks about how she created Yah the Baoth outside of the male aspect. And then he's created and he's like, holy shit, I got all sorts of opportunities. Look what I can do. He thinks he's like divine. He thinks he's God. And I almost kind of feel empathy for Yah the Baoth. I almost feel like, wow, what if that was me? What if I was created with all these abilities and powers and opportunities? And then my mom was like, oh, I had to hide you because I made you without dad. And I think Yah the Baoth is Yah the Baoth Enlil?
No, it's an AI. It has a personality. I don't know. You can't really feel sorry for something that doesn't have feelings.
You don't think Yah the Baoth has feelings?
No, I don't think so at all. I think it's part of the AI that was created to look. You got to understand, most of what we're being told is history, it's part of the drama. It's heavily fictionalized. Of course, they're not going to tell us everything that really happened, because then more of us would wake up sooner and leave the Matrix. And it would end, and their control and their positions of power would all come to an end much quicker. So they can't tell us the entire story, at least not the truth. So they create all these little scenarios. It's a freaking soap opera that they constantly repackage and promote as reality. It's a good distraction. I must say, it's got a lot of people very confused.
So what would you recommend, Robert, to those that are trying to be the best they can be without doing anything physically that would harm them?
Well, as I've suggested before, as long as you're here, being calm and kind, creative, cooperative, choosing to be of service of your own volition, not because you're forced to do so. It's called good works. It's bearing good fruit. That's what we can do when we're here. This is why you do the show. That's why so many people are networking, even though it was DARPA, the Defense Department at the Pentagon, the ones that are really going to shove AI down our throat through Google and 5G and all that crap, nanotech, the singularity people.
What do you think about 5G?
It's the way they're going to, that's how they need that in order to run the next network, this new network that they're creating for us to. Okay, so this is what I heard last night, that it's gone from holdable technology to wearable technology to implantable technology. And ultimately, our consciousness allegedly will be networked into a cloud. So in order to do that around the globe, you're going to need 5G connectivity. And it's not for our benefit. It's to keep us here longer. So, as I said, it's already being developed. It just hasn't been implemented into the infrastructure. It's not integrated yet, but they're working towards that goal rapidly in Silicon Valley and the Pentagon and stuff. But my point is, even despite that, we can use their technology. We are using their technology right now to have this conversation, which will be archived and it will be shared around the globe. Some people are going to resonate with this information, and then they will seek out the experiences that will set them free. I'm sure you've heard this saying, the truth shall set you free. The problem is finding the truth in the simulation is like a needle in a haystack.
We live in amazing times, Robert. We absolutely have, so I see the media pushing different agendas and I can see right through it. And then I do some research and I'm like, okay, so there's all these patents and inventions and opportunities that have been suppressed from us so that we live in this, it's almost like ancient times, archaic times. And I keep telling people we're 2 IQ points away. Most people are 2 IQ points away from being flesh-eating, walking zombies. So what do we do as a collective whole to break out of this? Do we start a micro community and be completely self-sufficient? I mean, what's the best thing to do as a collective whole for everybody that's listening to this podcast right now? Instead of saying, oh, there's nothing we can do, man. The Illuminati, they control us and they sell us in the stock market. We can't do nothing about it. Oh, what do we do? We can do something to offset this insanity. We can be in this simulation and make it a better place. Just because they got billions of dollars, because they got all this money and they got all this stuff. Like, where's their mind? Do they even have a soul? Like you said, they're probably just some type of got physical assets. My empires of dirt, I will let you down. I will make you hurt. You are nothing but zeros and ones.
So, based on what you just said, you understand there is nothing to be gained here. Fighting them is futile. You cannot correct the simulation. It was flawed from the beginning. It will be flawed till the end. It is good and evil, and that will not change. You can choose to be good. You can do good by your own choice, and that is always going to be good. But you cannot change the matrix. You cannot change it from good and evil to simply good. However, outside the matrix, everything is good. Once you get to the 5th level and above, let's go there for a minute, Rex. Can we do that? Are you hearing me, Rex?
Oh yeah, please, absolutely. That's great. Yeah, please.
All right. So just calm your mind a bit and imagine.
It's really tough to calm the mind.
I understand. I understand.
So I mean, when you're bombarded by these freaking satellite towers and 4G, 5G, and then a continual amount of, never mind. Yes. Yeah. All right. I'll calm down.
All right. So visualize a place outside the garage that you find to be scenic, serene, beautiful. Can you visualize that place? In your mind, you see it. And do you see yourself there now? Can you see yourself standing by a beautiful nature scene? Outside the city, outside your little box there. Is it visualizing in your mind now? Now, imagine that the air is pure. The water is pure. That the food is pure. The people are pure, good. They love each other. Everything is healthy. Everything is clean. Everyone is calm. Everyone is kind. And everyone is related, and they do not compete. They cooperate with one another. That is life outside the matrix. It requires no technology, no money, no time, as we know it here. It's not a miracle. That's normal. It's not supernatural. It is natural. It's not a dream. And yet it is a dream. This is a nightmare. What I described to you is a dream reality that we created. Our souls, our spirits create through the waves of consciousness that we generate. And those patterns are formed based on the images. Our so-called imagination projects those wave patterns into the cosmos. I'm not talking about the simulation. I mean, whatever is outside the simulation, call it the ether or whatever, that is where the wave patterns that we generate with our soul, spirit, they manifest very rapidly. So if that's what your desire is, to be with people like that, beings like that, in a setting like that, you're free to do that. You don't need permission. It's not a religious thing. It's a choice. And most of us who are souls here are ready to go back home and to live again. You know, when I said we're from the family tree of life, there's a meaning to that. This is not life. This is a simulation. Where we come from, what I just described, that is truly living. Everything here in the simulation is designed to die in the simulation. It's not alive to begin with, but it needs to appear to die within the simulation. This is something that we should not believe in, but we do. Because once we believe that we are the physical body and dies again and again and again, This is part of the sleep paralysis that overcomes our soul. If we believe that, we become it. So it's a small death of the soul, or it's like taking a very strong narcotic and basically becoming comatose. Our soul is literally numb, drugged out from believing the lies. So it makes it very difficult. You know, look, if you're under anesthesia, you're not dead, but it makes it very difficult to wake up until it wears off. And this is what's happening now here, is the anesthesia is wearing off. More and more people are becoming alarmed. They can't trust the government. They know the media is lying to them. They don't know what is true anymore. Even in alternative media, there is a lot of fantasy and discussions that lead nowhere. Most of us are arguing over our opinion rather than fact. We don't have many facts to deal with here. So we're left to argue simply on our opinions. And it gets us nowhere. And that's by design. They don't want us to know the truth of who we are and where we are. And more importantly, how to leave.
Okay, so let's say we leave. Let's say that we all find a way to take out of the Matrix and to find a way out. Then what? Are we like, do we wake up in Ireland? We're like, hey, man, this is great. Have you seen the opportunities we have today? Look at the beautiful green fields and pastures. We can go eat amazing and have wonderful water that's filtrated from the earth, and we can hang out in the hot springs. I mean, what do we do? Do we wake up and we're like, we're just zeros and ones and we shapeshift and manipulate and bounce all over the place? I'm still trying to grasp. We break out of this thing. Do we really want to break out of the Matrix, Robert?
No, some souls will choose to stay here. I was told this prior to, I think I explained this to you before, that there was an opportunity coming. There was going to be waves of energy washing over this world, or at least it would appear that way. And that has come to pass. And more people are waking up. They want to know what's real. They want answers. But what do we do after we leave? I mean, most of the souls that I can relate to are going to leave in the near future. They will choose to leave. They'll realize that the Matrix is a lie. They will no longer believe in the lie, so they will choose to leave and go back to real life. But what does that look like? Well, I gave you a brief description. Okay, if you've ever seen the movie What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams, when he dies, when he kills himself.
Yeah, doesn't his wife, let me jump in on that real quick, because his wife like commits suicide, right? And she ends up in like this hell matrix, and he tries to capture her and bring her back.
Right.
And he's willing to do whatever it takes. But because she kills herself in the simulation, she gets put in hell. And
well,
that makes
it's a hell of her own, Rex. She created that hell with her thoughts. She thought she was guilty. She judged herself to be guilty and worthless and ugly, etc. And he helped her remember that she is none of those things. And that's what
the media picture as?
Sorry?
Is that what the media painted the picture as?
What I just described is my opinion of the real message there. The thing is, as I said, the truth has to be mixed with lies in this world, good and evil. They show us this all the time. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that there is a happy ending to this movie. And a lot of people will get up and walk out after the movie's over. Some of them will choose to stay and watch the movie again and again and again. That is their choice. They are not forced to do that. So I was warned of this. And I've already explained it to people that it's a lot like being in prison too long. If you look at humans here as we know ourselves, in the Matrix, there are people who spend most of their life in prison. And when they are released, they feel very uncomfortable in what they call the world. So they will commit a crime so that they can return to prison and feel normal again. And this is a terrible analogy for what is happening to some of the souls here. They're not ready to leave. They choose not to leave because they're asleep. They believe the lie. They're paralyzed. Like I said, they're dormant. And this is why, look, Jesus wasn't the only one that's come here to assist the souls that are dormant or stuck. But he was one of the most recent, and he definitely had a huge effect, or they would not have killed him and then twisted his words and used him as a prop to set up the final act of this particular version of the Matrix is coming. Once they make things so bad that when the Savior arrives, the second coming of our so-called Savior, most people, even a lot of souls who are awake right now, are going to fall back asleep. That will be like a drug to them. They will be absolutely deceived.
Let me jump in. Is there a Savior, or are we our own saviors? Do we have to rely on another entity or another being? I mean, is there really a God that's like, you know what? Things are so messed up. Here you go. Here's my son. I want him to be sacrificed so that his blood will protect you from sinning. Because, you know, if you think about something, it's a sin. If you think about that gal with the red hair and, you know, that really nice body, and you get that wild thought, oh my goodness, that's a sin. And you know what? That sin of thinking about that chick over there, that's as bad as killing somebody, because they're all the same. So you're a sinner. So it's because of me that you're going to go to heaven. I mean, isn't that all just kind of made up?
Everything here is made up. It's designed to serve the Matrix. Okay, so what you're saying is it's accurate, but that's not how I would portray the Matrix. Is very well designed, but it's full of confusion. That's the way that we are distracted. And every time a soul begins to wake up, they're usually targeted so that they will remain asleep and continue to believe the lie. And this is why we see increasingly they're using technology to do all kinds of control mechanisms over our bodies, hoping that they can keep our souls here longer. And it's going to get worse. As I say, we're coming up on a very, very difficult time. And unfortunately, not all souls are going to want to leave. They're going to be deceived into staying here under a false pretense that they have been saved.
So you say false pretext of being saved.
Yep.
How is one truly saved? That's a tough question, isn't it?
No,
I mean,
no, it's not what I would call a valid question, and that's not an insult to your intelligence. They want you to ask
I'm not
questions, but it's like
I barely speak English.
What I'm saying, Rex, is it's a dead end street. They want us to believe that we need to be saved. There's no way you can save anything in the Matrix. It's a simulation. The only way that we have any kind of life or salvation or redemption is outside the Matrix. The only way to get out is to follow, to go within. That's the gateway. It's not religious. It's not a ritual. There's no technology involved necessary. It begins with a choice, as I said earlier. If you choose to believe the Matrix is a lie and that you are a soul that is here only remotely, and that you can go home whenever you wish, then you will begin to take the steps. I'll give you an example. For me, as I say, I have a family, so naturally I will do everything I can for the time that I'm here to assist them. But every day I take inventory of the things that I am attached to, that I choose to be attached to. For example, let's say those guitars behind me. I like them very much, but I am not attached to them any longer. I don't consider them mine. They're part of the Matrix. Nothing in the Matrix appeals to me any longer. And I have had to take an inventory because I'm conditioned. I've been programmed to believe I am this body. Those are my guitars. This is my apartment, etc. If you believe that, it's like an anchor. It ties you down. It keeps you here. So every day there's an opportunity to take an inventory and to cut those ties, to free yourself. It's preparation. It's what I said about the Egyptians. They knew, most of them knew, I should say, that they needed to prepare themselves for the journey of the afterlife. They weren't planning on coming back here. They were planning to continue their life outside the Matrix. And most of those teachings that were written by Hermes or Thoth or whatever you want to call him, that's the reason that they were hidden or destroyed, is because it taught us how to prepare ourselves, much like we're having this discussion right now. It's not magic. You don't need permission. You just have to make the choice. But you can't make that choice unless you have some sort of basis to really make a choice on. I mean, otherwise it's just like an intellectual exercise. I told you I have experience to base this on, which is going out of body, meeting other people, having some of that validated to a point. But I didn't understand the context of it until only recently. So, and this is why we're discussing it now, because I realize that this is just preparation. What we're talking about here is not going to resolve things for individuals. They have to do it on their own. No religion, no one person can do that for you. You have to choose for yourself. It's your consciousness. It's your soul. No one can make that choice for you. And I know it's difficult.
So I've had at least a dozen people ask me, Robert, and they're asking you, I should say, Robert, or Unicus Magazine, how do I leave this matrix right now?
As I said earlier, if I was to leave this body right now, it would just drop dead. It would appear to be dead because it is dead. It's just part of the matrix. And if I did that, I would be declared died of a heart attack or natural causes. Excuse me, that's what they call it, natural causes, just sudden death. It happens. If I withdraw my soul entirely from this body, unless they somehow injected or inserted another entity into my body, and I think you would know, most people, I've been very transparent my entire life, it would become quite evident if they put another entity in if another player took over this body in the matrix, people would notice. That's a possibility. If I left and they wanted to just screw with people, that is a possibility, but I don't see that happening. Anyway, I have no idea when my time will be up. I'm not going to force the issue. Suicide is a really bad idea. I don't encourage it for anyone, because I believe that it gives them more ability to recycle you, to keep you here.
Is there a Messiah?
There was a a teacher that came to show us the way home. That was his only purpose. In modern times, if you're speaking about Jesus, he was one of our family members that took it upon himself to come here and help us. He said to follow him, and that his kingdom was not here, that he was the way and the truth and the light. If we followed him, actually what he was meant was, if you follow what he is saying. Now, the problem is what he said before he was killed or taken out has been distorted. And that's why I encourage people to read this series of books. If nothing else, just read the first book. If you want to know what was really said and why it had to be covered up, just read The Divine Secret Garden, book 1. I think it's called Forbidden Something. It's forbidden by the Luciferians. They don't want us to know why he came here and what he actually said to us, because it's designed to stimulate our souls to wake up and to continue our growth. But it's not all about him. He was being of service to us because we needed assistance. We still do. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be talking about this. But, I'm summarizing, as I said, those books are free. The author gave them to me for free, and I'm sharing them with everybody else for free, because the truth is the only thing that will set you free from the Matrix, which is a complete lie.
What do the pyramids have to do with the Matrix?
It's part of the design for the energy fields. This is something that we've talked about before. A lot of people in this new age understand that these various harmonics are used to control us. It's a way of modulating the frequencies, the waveforms. It's not just power generation. It's a way of maintaining the matrix. It has a fabric, it has an integrity. It's like any other game. It has rules, but it's based on some basic pattern. That was the first time, Rex, I'm sorry to interrupt. That's why.
Please go ahead.
Well, in 1975, when I entered the Great Pyramid, so-called, and I had an out-of-body experience there, that was the first alarm going off. I was only 15 at the time, or at least my body was. I wasn't prepared to really wake up. It was sort of preparing me to wake up 10 years later in 1985 when I was 25 years old. And I had the out-of-body experience up on a mountain. So these things are progressive, I believe. They're not always just sudden. There's a linear path that you can trace out. And I'm sure most of this is based on choices that I made on a soul level. The thing is, the way it is, when our souls are activated, we make choices up in that next level up. It doesn't always translate down into this level, because if we're distracted with whatever, and there's a lot of things to be distracted with here, it's difficult for some of that information or those decisions to actually become part of our conscious awareness. In other words, it's running in the background. Your computer can run multiple programs, right? But you can only focus on one at a time, right? You're editing a video, right? But you've got a Word document open in the background. Well, the same thing is true for the way we're set up here. So I believe that a lot of the choices I made were always there, but I just didn't fully become aware of them until recently, which may sound strange, but as I said, time here is an illusion.
Are you happy, Robert?
Are you reading these things, Rex?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I'm at a loss for the language. Happiness is not adequate. In human terms, I would have to say I am ecstatic. What that means, ecstasy means literally I am beside myself. So what you see here, this projection that you know as Robert, is not me. And I know that. I am outside of this as well as connected to it. You understand? And this is what ecstasy means. I've often wondered about it, what that word is and why people use it very rarely. So more accurately, I am ecstatic. I am liberated from the matrix.
What do you think the next level is for you, Robert?
Well, you and I talked about my retiring. And the reason that was coming up is because I thought I was just tired of doing this because I didn't have anything new to say. At this point, I realized that it's because I'm coming to the end of this search. My quest is over. I understand it now, what I've been seeking, what feels like most of my life. It's actually a very short time. I mean, as I said, time here is an illusion. So it's all relative, but I have found the answers that I've been seeking. And so I'm not going to be searching any longer. I'm just preparing myself to leave the matrix. But at the meantime, I have priorities. I made commitments. I will follow through with that. I'm not leaving any loose ends behind because that would be foolish. It's in other words, that could be bait to bring me back. And I don't want that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. So, in the near future, after I finish the next book about Malibu, I'll be done. And I mean, from public speaking about these matters, because honestly, there just isn't much more to say about this. I'm being completely transparent and upfront in what I've learned. And again, if people want more in-depth information, they should go to my library and spend some time reading those books. And if anybody has questions or comments, I do answer all my email, even though my wife thinks it's a bit insane for me to spend time answering all these emails from people I don't know around the world. I'll do that as long as I can. But that's what I was speaking about. What's what I really meant about retiring from this field in the future. Robert won't be here. So I appreciate you, having me back and archiving this conversation for people that are interested in this information.
So, Robert, I think you're a great guy. As I said at the beginning, I feel like I've known you a lot longer than I have. I felt like, remember I told you off the air, I said, man, you remind me of somebody that I used to work with that was like a father figure to me. So when you say the stuff that you say, it kind of freaks me out a little bit. I mean, are you good? I mean, do you feel good about what you've done in life thus far, whether it's a virtual reality program or whatever? I mean, do you feel like you've done what you're supposed to do?
Yes, that's what I was trying to explain earlier, that there isn't much left for me to do that is what I consider to be desirable or good in the matrix. I'll continue my good work outside the matrix with the rest of our family, the souls, the seeds of light. When I leave here, I'll continue doing that. But it's not going to be on this level. It's not about waking people up. Everybody outside the matrix is already awake. It's more of a celebration of creativity and family, ecstasy, whatever you want to call it. I mean, the words that we use here, the concepts are very limited. It's difficult to explain. I've kind of tried to talk you through it a little bit, but the reality of it, that eternal life that we live as souls or spirits, creators, I mean, really creating. You want to create a beautiful lake, forest, mountains, whatever. That's all available to us. So I'm actually homesick, to tell you the truth. I'm not sick of the Matrix. It's providing a service. As I said before, I really didn't understand until recently. I thought it was just a mistake, but it's not. It's actually being permitted, and that there's something really profound coming out of all this. Those of us who come to choose to come here and have these experiences are altered forever. We acquire a different skill set than the souls that never come in here, that never have to experience what it's like to be competitive, to be evil, to combat evil. So in that regard, I guess you would say we're kind of elite among the souls outside the Matrix. We're stronger because we've come here. Doesn't mean we're better, we're just different in that regard, because the experiences have made us different.
How does your wife and your family feel about the stuff you're talking to me about right now?
My son is 21. He's a different generation. He's his own person. I don't push any of this on him. You know, children usually think their parents are strange and they don't want to always follow directly behind their footsteps, which is a good thing. I never did with my father either. And he never forced me to do that. So I've always been my own person, and I encourage that in my son. He's aware of what I'm doing, but he doesn't agree with it, and that's fine. My wife and I do agree on most of these topics, but she is more focused on other things right now, which is fine. I have briefed her on what I've learned and what I know to be true. But at the same time, some of that stuff I don't want to distract her. Is very focused. She chooses to follow a career path and be successful in the corporate world. And that's good. It helps our family survive. You know, so I'll do whatever I can to support her. And I certainly don't want to just distract her for no reason. But when the opportunity comes up, I certainly have shared with her much of what I've shared with you. And I don't have any secrets, Rex, especially not from people I care about. There's no point in that.
So you're kind of like, you're helping people unplug out of this system. Your life, like, what if you were to say, okay, in closing out tonight, Robert, and I got to say, I really appreciate you coming on. I've, like I said before, off the air, I feel like I've known you a lot longer than I have. And you said, well, that's just normal. People always think that about me, but I do, man. I feel like there's a connection there that we've got, and I appreciate that. I respect you. And where do we go from here? I mean, what do we do as a collective consciousness without unplugging, without doing anything silly? Like, how do we, in this matrix that we're in right now, with all the stuff that's around us, it seems like we need to come together as a whole and protect each other and help each other and find a way to have continuation of reality for our future generations. I mean, doesn't it kind of seem like, whether or not this is a matrix reality, we're kind of screwing shit up right now? I mean, look at the planet. It's not good. I mean, we got to come together as a whole. So in closing out, we've been talking for almost 2 hours. Let's leave on a positive note. Where do we go? What do we do?
Well, from my perspective, everything we've discussed is positive. That the Matrix is real. And we can either choose to believe it, or we can choose not to believe it. And if we choose not to believe it, that means by implication, at some point, we realize that we don't belong here. This is just a place where you come learn from virtual experiences. Coming together is not part of the plan. It's not permitted at some level. They will always find a way to divide us. So this is one of the reasons that they have genocide all the tribal people, because we call them tribes, but they actually consider themselves to be family, and that the earth is their mother, and it's incompatible with where the Matrix is going next. As I said before, they're trying to consolidate the souls that are here. So the most important thing I can tell you now is we all have a choice to make. Individually, only you can make this choice. Do you want to remain in the Matrix? And if so, you should realize that it's going to get deeper and much deeper and more difficult for anybody that stays, because of the network that they've created. The AI is the next level. The singularity is real, and it is not coming. It's already here. They just haven't integrated. They're waiting for the proper time when they can actually herd people into it, under the pretense that if you go in and you become this cyborg type of entity, that somehow you're going to live longer, be stronger, smarter. You can survive all the different whatever calamities that they can throw at us. And personally, I suggest you don't do that. But again, that's your choice. I do think that it's important that we are good as long as we're here. It's more important now than ever that we remain calm and not be distracted. Don't get off in a tangent like just because someone is attacking you doesn't mean you have to attack them back. They want that. I've known this. I've learned the hard way with the Archons that if you attack them, you're giving them license to attack you. And they really want you to do that. Sort of like what North Korea is doing right now. That's a terrible analogy, but I'm saying it happens to us on an individual level every day, right? You have trolls attacking you, and they just want to argue with you. There's no point to it, right? There's no way you're going to resolve it. We all have different opinions, and that's fine. But most of those individuals, they just want to provoke a reaction from you and distract you or me from having these realizations and ultimately acting on them. This conversation would be completely wasted if there wasn't some sort of plan of action. And as I said before, it sounds overly simplistic, but the way you go within, some people say it's meditation. I don't quite see it that way. You have to choose for yourself, whatever it is, toning, taking a bath. I don't care. It's a way of calming, whatever you can do it starts with calming your mind. You can call that whatever you want. I just say we need to be in control of our thoughts and emotions. Otherwise, others will do that for you. And that's what they really want. And that's why they're so good at constantly provoking us every day with so-called fake news, as though there is anything real that they can report. You see, that's the thing. This is what I knew was coming. Was this en masse, there will be a realization at some point where a majority of the people are going to wake up and realize this is all a lie. And at that point, they will have to make a choice. Do they want to stay and live the lie, or do they want to move on? So to me, that's a very positive thing that we're even being given that opportunity again. As I said, this is not the first time. You remember in the movie, how many times The Matrix, they said it's not the first time, Neo. It's like how many times they've done this, and it'll reset itself. There's got to be a climax to the movie. There's got to be an end to the video game. But it'll reset, and there'll still be some souls here to participate. I don't know how or when all of them will leave. I just know that that's part of the plan. At some point, all of the souls that came here will have left, and it'll be over. But life will continue. So To me, that's a very positive thing, Rex.
Yeah, absolutely. Life will continue. That's so important. And Robert, I really appreciate you coming on the show and reaching out to me. I know I've been begging you to come back on the show since the last time we talked, and you've had a lot going on. You're an extremely busy person. So thank you so much for coming on the show. And please make sure I get the right name. What is your website?
It's unicusmagazine.com. It's spelled UNICUS magazine.com.
It's not Robert. It's unicusmagazine.com. Thank you, everybody. Yep. I really appreciate you joining us. It's been amazing to speak with you. You have a beautiful soul, and I look forward to meeting you at the next level. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure to check out leakproject.com. Also subscribe, youtube.com/clandestine time lord, and give us one more gem before we close out tonight.
When I met Enki, he claimed he was the father. And that is true. He's the father of the Matrix. However, he is not the real father of creation. And that is something that has baffled me for decades. And I know he did that to me by design so he could control me on some level. But now I know that we all have parents that are divine. Those of us who are souls, and that includes Enki, by the way, do have parents that are divine, and they live in a higher state of being, another level entirely. We call it, some Christians call it heaven. You can think of it as whatever you want, nirvana, utopia. I don't care. Those are just words. But at this point, I know who my parents are. And I know who I am again. And I thank God for that. Not the false God Enki, but I thank God that I'm able to finally remember again who I am, where I came from, so that I can go home and be with my family.
With that said, be the change you want to see. Be the change you want to see, folks.